175, Chapter 231. The notice requirements have been satisfied. The meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Tonight, we're going to start with the presentation by the Tenafly Downtown Revitalization Group. And Councilman Michaels, why don't you take the lead on this one and take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll quickly hand it off to the BFJ team just as a setup. As a reminder for everybody, this is a program that we did some time back. The BFJ team has been sharing updates, and this is the first of the major presentations. You've received this presentation. The goal, I don't think, unless you guys want to, is not to go into every detail of every project as much as hear from the BFJ team. Noah, Susan, and Sylvia I see from the BFJ. And I also want to recognize and thank, I see Mary Beth and Daniel Zausner from the Downtown Revitalization team. So, you know, after the BFJ team speaks, if they have anything to say, I would love for you guys to hear directly from them as well. So with that, Noah, if you could just kick us off.
Great. Thank you so much, Adam. And thank you all for inviting us to present what we've basically worked to date. I am bringing up a short little presentation. Okay, can everyone see? Just want to make sure you can see what our presentation.
It's there.
We're okay? Great.
Just have to click the got it.
Okay. Okay, so who are we? BFJ Planning was hired by the borough to prepare a downtown revitalization plan. My name is Noah Levine, the principal in charge of this project. I'm also a former resident of Tenafly. I grew up in the borough, so I know it well, and I think that helped us hit the ground running on this project. I'm joined today by Sylvia Delfava, the project manager, as well as Susan Favare, who's kind of a specialist in land use and zoning issues, particularly in New Jersey. We've been working alongside a steering committee, Adam Michaels, the chair, along with Jeff Grossman, Mark Zinna, Daniel Zausner, David Jang, Mary Beth Wilmot, and Craig Feinberg. So it's been a very productive working group, and we're excited to show you what we have prepared today. So first, we're going to go through a little bit of the process, kind of explain how it is that we've gotten to kind of our first list of draft projects for the borough to consider. We'll go through some of the public engagement and key takeaways for the downtown area. We'll provide a quick overview of our proposed project list, but we don't really intend to go into any of the projects in detail. We know that our time is limited, so we want to make sure that we kind of give you a sense of the types of projects that are included, but also we're available to answer questions on any of the projects. The presentation that was sent out earlier has individual slides for each of these projects, so we can kind of go into them, you know, on an as-needed basis. So here's our project schedule. Essentially, we started at the end of the summer, and the first phase of the project really was getting into the existing conditions, doing some analysis on the market and economic conditions in the downtown area, and really preparing for the public outreach, which happens largely in September and October. We conducted I'll get to the public outreach on the next slide, but in the bottom here, you can see there was an online survey, a public workshop, and we developed a plan website. All of that was done in September and October. So the project website was created thanks to the help of Omar and Jimmy in the borough's office, the borough administrator's office. We developed a public survey and ideas wall, and that was live for about a month and a half. We had our first public workshop on September 29th. We had a series of focus group meetings throughout September and October, as well as other stakeholder meetings with people like DPW, police department, fire department, other interested stakeholders. We had a meeting with the students for the high school and the middle school and Adam Michaels helped to set that up, and that was really informative to us. And then we also plan to do a second public workshop towards the end of January or early February. And at that presentation, we'd like to show our recommendations for the downtown area and really test those ideas to see where they stand with the public. Just want to give you a kind of a quick sense of what we heard through some of these engagement activities. For the public survey, we had 418 survey responses, which we consider to be an excellent response. It's close to 9% of the total households in New Jersey, excuse me, in Tenafly. I'm getting a little background noise. I don't know if is that just the.
We hear you.
Okay, sorry.
We hear you just fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Some of the main takeaways, one of the big takeaways were that respondents are generally unsatisfied with how downtown looks, as well as its offerings. You can see on the chart to the right, the question of how satisfied are you with how our downtown looks, about 70% of respondents said that they were unsatisfied, 22% of which said they were very unsatisfied. The lack of variety in shops and services and the lack of ambiance also were top reasons that people felt that they were deterred from going downtown. And when asked whether they were satisfied with the offerings, 81% said they were unsatisfied. When asking respondents if downtown were improved, would you be more likely to come? And the good news is that overwhelmingly people said yes. 97% of people said they would be more likely to shop if downtown was improved with regard to looks and offerings. The five most voted priorities were to attract and retain businesses, more shopping options, improve the facades, so the building facades, more restaurants and nightlife, and improve downtown streetscape. The chart at the bottom, the pie chart says, how ambitious should plans be, for the downtown be? And we understand that this is a kind of a general question, but we just wanted to get a feel for how conservative or non-conservative the community is. And it sounds like, amongst the respondents, about a third said reinvent the whole thing. And about 2/3 said keep what works and add to that. And a very small percentage said it's fine the way it is. So there really, it seems to be that there is some appetite for some change in the downtown area. The survey also had an ideas wall, which is a really nice way to get some of those open-ended ideas and kind of crowdsource some ideas from the community. And we got 128 comments. People also had the ability to like or dislike other comments, so it had kind of an interactive feature, and it was, it felt like a kind of a constructive way to get feedback. Just want to kind of highlight some of the comments. They're really, we can't go into all of them. The top left, if we clean up our traffic patterns and improve the ambiance and feel the commercial areas, it would be easier to navigate and possibly more people would visit. I'd like to see Washington Avenue become fully walkable along the middle. On the top right, we have a lot of talent in Tenafly. We need to showcase with more arts and cultural activities. And this was an idea that we heard a lot also in our focus group meetings. It would be nice to see pretty awnings over the storefronts, more attractive doorways, and something more attractive. We heard the need for maintenance, such as painting the lampposts, fixing other Belgian blocks that are dislodged, removing tattered banners, etc. So, make the downtown feel more inviting. The bottom left talks about a sports bar, a bookstore, things that will help to kind of bring people downtown. And the bottom right is the need for, planting and shade trees and making the downtown feel more warm and friendly and places for people to go and enjoy. For the public workshop, we had roughly 75 attendees. And, from our sense was that people supported a lot of the ideas that we presented. They were not, fully baked ideas, but kind of, we tried to, show people where we were going with regard to improvements in the downtown. And people generally seem supportive that the pedestrian environment needs improvement, lighting needs to be improved, there needs to be more places for people to sit, and visit. And the buildings and public realm need more consistency and become more appealing. And there was also support for year-round programming and regular events in the downtown area. Just wanted to talk about some of the meetings that we had with the students. Here you can see the pictures, the high school and the middle school. The principals helped form cabinets for us, or I guess the cabinets were already formed, but they brought the cabinets together to talk about these issues. It was really interesting to see that a lot of the ideas the students had were somewhat consistent with what we heard from the adults. We took notes on kind of a virtual whiteboard. Some of the main themes that we heard was the need for more variety of stores, especially food options, more places for kids to hang out, better places and parks for kids. We heard the need to make streets safer for walking and biking. When we were at the middle school, we saw that the bike stalls were filled with bikes. So we do know that a lot of kids in the middle school particularly bike. Improve the lighting, and they also wanted to see more events such as farmers markets. So there was some consistency, surprisingly, between the students and the adults. This just highlights some of the focus groups that we had. Really trying to get at a lot of the people that really know the downtown area well. So we met with Parks and Recreation, Economic Development and Downtown Improvement, Accessibility, Roads and Infrastructure, and Zoning. We also met with a representative from the Northern Valley Greenway Committee leader, the county roads engineer, to understand how the county roads are operating and how the borough relates with the county on those roads, as well as the borough's DPW and fire department. So just want to go through some of the big ideas that really guided our recommendations. The first was to address walkability and connections. So that includes improving the pedestrian environment in anticipation of more people visiting the downtown, making it a better place for people to walk and feel safe crossing the roads and not feeling like it's an auto-dominated downtown would really go a long way. And that goes towards safety as well as biking. So, improving biking connections and thinking towards the future, if the Northern Valley Greenway were to occur, having a bicycle network in place would really go a long way towards making that and linking that asset into downtown and surrounding areas. With regard to transportation and intersections, some of our ideas bring up the idea of redesigning the triangle at Hillside and Washington Street in Piermont. That's where the bus stop is now. And, with the idea of making that bus stop a little bit more welcoming and also removing that segment from the street network as it is actually causing some inefficiencies. And I can get into that later if you want to discuss that. Also looking at the East Clinton County Road intersection, which could be improved and feels unsafe. We've heard that there's a lot of congestion along County Road, and this has been brought up in prior studies. One of our recommendations is to address some of the signals along County Road, which can be improved to maximize the efficiency of what's already there. Piermont Road itself, when you go north of the downtown area, is very wide. And one idea that we have is to convert that to a two-way street. And that will help with circulation and also might provide for some parking areas adjacent to it on West Railroad Avenue. We looked at Ridge Road, which is a fairly wide road with 2 lanes in each direction. It's probably a lot wider than it needs to be, given the traffic volumes that currently exist. And so there might be an opportunity to improve mobility, potentially with some bike lanes, some ways to calm traffic. We have heard that speeding is an issue and make it feel more friendly for pedestrians. And we did meet with DPW, police and fire, and we understand that there are some concerns regarding emergency access as vehicles going to the eastern portion of town, need to go through and over the tracks and they go across Piermont. So any improvements would have to kind of take into consideration access for those vehicles.
No, why don't we put a pause and just see if there's any questions from
Sure,
the
I know it's a
council?
lot.
Councilman, thank you, Noah, by the way. Excellent presentation. Council members who has questions, comments? Julie? Banu? Lauren?
Yeah.
Yes, Lauren.
Of course. Noah, thank you so much for this presentation so far, and thank you for the Downtown Revitalization Committee for doing all of this work with our residents and the public. It's so vital to hear their voices. My question really is, I've been working on pedestrian safety. So as we're looking at the walkability and connections, are you seeing or were you tasked with looking at any sort of funding for any of these projects, any grants or safety grants from the state or the county?
Yeah, it's good that you asked that question. We have met independently with the CFO of the borough, Susan Adam. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her, having a moment on her last name. But we did meet to discuss possible other funding sources. It sounds like, especially for the transportation projects and infrastructure projects, there is a lot of funding that is available, either through the TIP or for the America Reinvestment Act. So as we start to develop these projects, one of the things that we will do is really kind of pinpoint those funding sources that we think would be most appropriate. We haven't had an opportunity really to get into the details of that just yet. We wanted to kind of test these ideas, but I do think that some of the larger projects, there would be funding sources available from other places.
I just want to follow up. I had pitched revitalizing River Edge Road and putting in, the median and lighting and pedestrian paths and bike and walk paths. And it became an incredibly expensive project because on either end, of course, is the traffic lights. And I know we're not talking about specifics, but from what I understand, grants that improve pedestrian safety exist, and we have that process in place, and we're looking at 5 years out from what we understand. So if we're going to consider these for this upcoming budget, I would like that kind of information to follow up in our next time.
Understood. I also wanted to mention that a lot of our projects have multiple phases to them. The project that you mentioned along River Edge Road, the first phase for that we think could be coming up with design, engineer drawings. The second phase, you could do a lot of the improvements along that road with striping, and that could be done fairly inexpensively with striping and bollards, if there were to be a bike lane. An actual median, if that were to be constructed, would be more expensive. But a lot of the kind of purpose of kind of narrowing the road and improving conditions for pedestrians could be done with striping.
Thank you.
I've heard the longer version, and I do want to thank you, Noah, for an excellent job, but I've heard the longer view of this.
Dan?
If I could just ask,
Go ahead.
I saw Mary Beth, who is on the revitalization plan. I don't know, Mary Beth, do you have any thoughts? I saw David and then, Daniel, who came tonight. If you guys have any thoughts.
Yeah, no, like I said, I mean, I've heard this again. I think that, a lot of this stuff is interesting. I'm just not sure how we're gonna, getting, different businesses and things. I'm just not sure how we're gonna implement it. I agree with everything that's been the findings, but I'm just, so if maybe that's the end of the presentation, so. But I think it's really interesting and helpful.
Would you like me to continue the presentation or kind of just?
Sorry, Daniel was just.
Oh, sorry.
Daniel, why don't you come up to the microphone, please, so everyone in the public can hear you, please.
Hey, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the mayor and council members Grossman and Michaels for affording us this opportunity to go through this process. I know your time is valuable, and the fact you took time out to meet with us and do this was incredible, as well as the council for approving the funding for this exercise. On the business side, I've had the opportunity to do urban master planning in the 8 different cities across the US and Canada and Europe. So my expectations were pretty big because they were much larger cities. And I will say, going into this process, I was a little pessimistic just because a lot of people were thinking things in Tenafly are never going to change. And what was fascinating to me was not only did BFJ come across with incredible ideas, many of them semi-affordable, but the fact that the surveys, that they saw such a high percentage of the population of the city, which is really unheard of in surveys. I mean, a lot of times you're happy to get 1% in a survey response, and the fact that they almost got 10% of the households sharing so much valuable information. And the nice thing too, for me personally, was so much of the information that we got from many of the community members was really in line with some of the things that we were talking about. So much low-lying fruit that BFJ has gone through that we can discuss in much greater detail. And I sincerely hope that when we come back to you in January, we can really talk about the things that we can hit the ground running with and see a lot of really great improvements come in springtime, actually, which would be incredible. When you think about when we started this process, I was like, this could take forever to see anything come out of this. And now we could be talking about stuff that we could see funding for in January and make happen come the spring and summer. So thank you for this, and thank you, Noah.
Thank you.
Noah, do you just want to share, because I know we got a lot tonight, so I know we can't go through anything. I trust that the council has read through the projects. Can you just give the council just sort of the next steps from a process
Yeah.
standpoint?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. Right. So I think this is a good slide to step on. So today,
Noah,
we,
before you start there, just,
yes.
Manu has a question. I just wanted to get his question in before he does.
No,
the
no, I
summary.
just wanted to make an observation that, you know, I've heard this a couple of times where the 400 respondents constituted 10% of the households. And that really, I mean, I don't think that's actually true because, you know, 400 respondents out of 15,000 people in the town. We don't know that it's each person represents a household. So I just wanted to point that out.
Go ahead, Noah.
Okay, thanks. So here, you know, today we've kind of introduced what it is that we've been working on. What we hope to do is have a follow-up meeting in January or February before the budget gets finalized. You know, then we can kind of really fine-tune some of these ideas and work with the borough on what is most appropriate for 2022 and beyond. Then, you know, in the meanwhile, we'll be kind of working on finalizing the projects that will be included in the plan, you know, with a capital P. That plan will be completed in March, likely. And so there'll be more time to kind of discuss these projects and refine them. And we'll also be presenting those ideas in, you know, an upcoming public meeting. And then the final report will be presented to council again in March. Where you know, we'll have a palette of options to think about for, you know, 2022 and beyond.
Great, thank you. So I think that's really it. I will take Councilwoman Dayton, to your point. I'd love, Susan, if you can, for Lauren's action, if you could look into, I know we have the master list. You guys have the list on slides 20 through 22. If you could look into, that's a great point that Councilwoman Dayton had on what grants are available, particularly the American Recovery Act, and see which ones of these projects. So again, to be really clear, the BFJ team is proposing these 3 pages, and these are the projects that they're going to flesh out, continue to share with the public, et cetera. But I'd love, Susan, if you could take a look at that, that'd be great.
So so this is fabulous. I think we've made some really good progress. The next, based on what Noah is saying, the next expectation of the council is to get, there'll be more meetings in January, and the council will get more feedback in January and/or February.
Yeah, Noah, the BFJ team will come back end of January or probably February, just in time for the budget sessions with the projects. Again, they took a first pass at the projects and the cost. You guys see all those costs there. They're going to refine those numbers. I know Noah has actually already met with traffic people or whatever they need to meet with. And around the February timeframe, they'll come back to the council, present again with their recommendations on these are the projects. And then it is up to the council, of course, at the end of February, beginning of March for budget.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Laura.
So, and this is for BFJ or for Adam and Jeff, who are part of this committee. we had the engineer run through a few of these already and give cost estimates and some engineering reports. For example, parking lot O, we had looked to redevelop. And, we were told it was upwards of, 6 figures. The numbers here are about 30,000. How did,
This is their first, I
No,
wouldn't,
but I'm
don't
asking-
worry about the exact number. This is their first cut. When they come back in January and February, they'll have more refined numbers.
my question
Well,
though
I
is,
can answer that.
my question really is, were any of the engineering reports given to the council over the past few years on some of these projects given to BFJ to look at? That's
Um,
really where I'm going with this.
No,
And
we
get
have,
professional work done.
we've seen a lot of materials from the borough, but for any of the projects, if there are projects like that, I haven't seen the plan for Lot O or the one for River Edge Road that you mentioned earlier. I haven't seen the cost estimates. That would be very helpful for us. And we'll certainly incorporate some of those findings. For Lot O, I just want to mention that $30,000 is just for signage and permitting process. It's kind of minimal improvements, kind of the first step towards kind of opening up that lot for employees and for residents. It doesn't include any structural changes to the lot, any redevelopment. That would of course be a substantial amount more than $30,000.
Okay, thank you. So maybe we'll get that stuff over
Absolutely.
from Colliers to BFJ.
That'd be great. If Omar, if you can help with that, because I know you.
Okay, Noah and team, thank you very much. Councilman Michaels, Councilman Grossman, thank you for all your energy everyone's energy, but the councilman who sat on the committee. Noah, we're looking forward to hearing from you after the turn of the year.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
For being here
BFJ.
tonight. Appreciate it.
And thank you to Mr. Zausner who came in person. Thank you.
Okay, Deborah, are you here?
Not yet.
Is Deborah here?
Might be going on Zoom.
Yes, sir.
I'm here, but you can't hear
Deborah?
me.
We can
Can
hear
you
you,
hear me?
Deborah. How you
Yep.
doing?
Hi,
We
how
can
are
hear
you? All right.
How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. You're going to, thank you for joining us. You're going to speak to us a little bit about a tree rope course.
I am. This is just basics right now. Sorry,
Basics
I'm
are
just-
good.
All right, great. So all of us at the Nature Center are looking at some different options of what we could bring into the area to provide additional recreative properties. And one of the things that was brought to our attention was the idea of a tree adventure course. We found a company that does this without any harm to the local flora in the area. They work around the trees as opposed to chopping down and building poles and things like that. And so we do have still some concerns, and we're working on creating an RFP right now so that we can identify what exactly this company would be able to do within the limitations of what we're wanting. Some of our concerns that we discussed at our last board meeting were obviously going to be things like liability in case there's any sort of an issue. Give me 1 second. I'm just pulling this up. We were talking about the numbers of how many people we would want allowed per day so that we don't become a nuisance to the neighborhoods in the surrounding area. Obviously the idea of this is if we were able to bring in a company, they would probably be charging and they would then be able to give a portion of that to the center, therefore providing a additional source of revenue to help fund the center. We just need to kind of really identify all the specifics, and that is going to have to be done through a proposal that we're trying to identify and start putting together.
So Deborah, do you want to take some questions from the council members? 'Cause
Yeah,
some
be
of them
happy
have
to.
Questions for you.
Yep.
Okay, Councilwoman Dr. O'Connor, go ahead.
So, hi Deborah, how you doing?
Hi, good, thank you.
So I just wanted to ask you, seems like you have a lot of considerations, but you had a specific plan in mind, or I'm just a little fuzzy
Correct.
on that?
So the idea is we're looking for a place where we could potentially have this course taken care of, which is close to an area that already houses a parking lot so that nothing has to be built for that. The idea would be potentially going towards where the location of the JCC and or the Greek church is, and then seeing if we can form a partnership with those organizations to be able to utilize their parking lot. This way, we don't have to worry about the building of any of or paving of any area.
So the rope course would be on a parking lot.
No, the parking lot would be where people would be able to park, and then the ropes course would be built within the trees that are closest to the parking lot with a path leading from the parking lot to the ropes course.
So like, to me, if the council were to say, yeah, go do this, you know, the understanding would be that no trees would be like impacted, or what,
Correct.
you know, like,
Yes.
do you have particular parameters?
Yes. So the idea would be that we wouldn't have to cut down any trees, that it would be working within the confines of what is there. And like I said, this company that we found actually does that. They build the course around the trees. They're not harming the trees. They're making it work within the current stand. And the idea is that we wouldn't want things to be damaged in the building of this.
And this company in particular only works in protected areas. So
Right.
100% all of their materials and everything is all about
Sustainability.
Or they make sure that there's no, they specialize just in sustainability and only.
Thank you. I do just like to always ask this question, and just maybe you can speak to it, which is, what do you see as the need for them?
Once again, as I mentioned, we are hoping to really expand on the different types of recreative opportunities in our community and in the area. And in all honesty, this would be another way to fund the center. We're looking for diversifying our funding, and this would be a potential opportunity.
You good with your questions, Julie? Benu, did you have questions?
Just one. You said you would consider having some kind of a partnership with JCC or Greek Church and to be able to use their parking lots. You know, it's, I guess, a starting off point as well as their parking. Would they then come back around and say that they want to use that as something that they would offer their, you know, to people, you know, so that it becomes commercially viable for them? Is that kind of the idea, or do you want to take complete ownership from the nature center point of view?
That would be a partnership between this company and them. So they would have to make that decision. So the company would be making multiple partnerships with all of us. So percentages would go to us, percentages would go to us being the nature center, percentages might go to the JCC or the Greek church. That's one of the things that has to get identified. You know, the specifics have to be identified.
Right, so they could potentially, so the church or whatever, or JCC could benefit from the work that basically that we're doing. There's no way to do it out of our own parking lot?
No. No,
It just
our
wouldn't be
current
big
parking
enough,
lot holds
or-
18 cars at most.
Right, no, I get that. I'm just saying, you know, are we looking at 500 people coming to the, for this, or, you know, 10 people at a particular time?
When I met with the company, they usually need space for about 100 cars. That includes their staff, that includes the people that are coming in, but there's no way to identify. But we would also need to discuss, like I said, identifying in the proposal what the limitations are. So we could say that it's going to be less than 100 people, but at the same time, that still needs to be somewhat profitable for them if they're going to be putting in the effort and the work, and in all honesty, taking on the responsibility of this course.
And so for that, you would be, what would their break even point be in terms of?
That is still something we're working out.
Okay.
Good. Council President Day. Shock, you have a question?
Well, as the Nature Center liaison, yeah. Listen, you turned to, anyway. As the Nature Center liaison, I was part of this meeting. First of all, I want to thank Deborah. For spearheading this and Adam for the idea. The board members did have concerns because we do want to ensure that our nature center can still be utilized for what we have right now, which is the trails and the animals and the ecosystems that we're preserving. At the same time, what the board discussed was that they're not sure that this ropes company wants to go smaller. If we say we put limitations on it, even for COVID, it may not be fiscally possible to run this. We had discussed possibly coming in from Hudson, from 9W. We had discussed coming in from, other access points, and there's not too many that make sense. Keep in mind, this will be during the day traffic. It might have, school trips, it might have other educational things or camps during the summer. So if we are going to make the decision to go forward with this, we do need to prepare for that eventuality of those numbers. And I think what Deborah's saying is we have a lot to work out because those pieces really just aren't obvious and aren't the way our nature center is set up right now. So I did hear some of the board members too were very cautious to put entrances near homeowners, which I did respect a lot. The noise or the traffic from this, we want to keep away from some of the homes that surround our center. And Deborah, of course, everyone discussed, Julie, to your point, preservation and ensuring that our land is not disturbed in a way that would, harm the trees or cause major permanent damage to any of it. So Deborah, did I cover that?
Very well, thank you.
This stage, though, you're all just fleshing out the actual plan that you would all present back to us, or?
Well, I believe, and Wendy, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the council needs to decide whether we go ahead with this on our land. The nature center is the stewards of the land, but the land ownership rests with us.
But I mean, as far as tonight, like.
Yeah, I think that-
Up in the air with all of it, and, right.
Right,
We've
so-
got some misgiving, that
So-
really almost arose from some of Ben's questions, but about money going to religious organizations. My head's kind of going in different directions.
Right, so let me just jump in here for a second. I believe that, and Deborah, you correct me if I'm wrong, we're at the stage where Deborah is kind of officially bringing this to the council. This discussion is really just beginning.
Okay.
So far, every question at the table tonight is 100% valid, every concern. And Deborah's really just trying to get a sense of, look, this is the first conversation. We need a whole lot of she has to do a whole lot of homework with her board, herself, and then come back to the council with some sort of proposal, whatever that means, okay? But she doesn't want to do that and surprise us with the plan, right? So she's already got 10 questions right here. The council members have raised, and we've only covered 4 council members, right? So I think, is that a correct assessment, Deborah?
Correct. Yeah, like I said,
Okay.
this is literally still has a lot to be fleshed out. This is just the
Yes.
beginnings
Right.
of a proposal.
not-
We're just working on it right now.
Right. Go ahead, Council President.
I just want to also follow up, the nature center is tasked with funding and running our nature center and paying their employees, and they have an excellent staff over there doing a ton of educational programming. It's their fiscal responsibility to find funding sources instead of turning to us and saying, we need you to fund X, Y, and Z. They're trying to come up with out-of-the-box ideas, and I really do congratulate this idea and hope that we could find some way to move it forward so that they have a steady funding source here for their center.
Just if I can, and without a doubt, it's all about the money as well. I'm telling you from experience that I have done this with my boys. we didn't make a single penny. It is the coolest thing.
I'm with you.
For all our residents, 15,000,
fun.
5,000, whatever Councilman Menon does his calculation. So the money is amazing. Please don't make it about money. It is a super, super fun for all ages that is gonna add to the nature center.
Sure, it's health, wellness, outdoor adventure, safe in COVID.
Councilman Grossman,
Right.
your question, please.
Yeah. Hey, Deborah, thank you
Hi.
very much. I really don't have a question for you because this is so
Yeah.
embryonic stage, but I know we discussed previously here, can we, especially if it's on a Green Acres portion of the land, have a for-profit company, not just for-profit, but for-profit that may be actually sharing some of that profit with another entity such as Greek Orthodox Church or the JCC? Because I could understand that it may be if the profits were split between the company operating it and the nature center, that would be one thing. But now this is getting diluted, and that doesn't take away from the fun aspects, but I don't know legality of this, so. I figured you could. That's why I'm kind of looking in your direction, not over at Deborah.
So what would happen is the company selected by the Nature Center, aside from the processes that we would have to do as the council as well as the Nature Center in order to have Green Acres approve this activity on the property, potentially you think of it that the company would be renting parking spaces directly from one of those entities. The Nature Center is not involved in that aspect. The
Separate
Nature
contract.
Center then is getting their share of payment for the rental of the area in order to have the road stores. So we have to think of it as two separate agreements, and not as profit sharing, so to speak. But yes, anything the Nature Center brings in has to be earmarked for conservation purposes.
Okay, and I would imagine an agreement would be contingent upon this company or any company's ability to obtain that parking. So there would be a whole series of steps there. Okay,
I'm sure there'd be some way of in that negotiation just as a neighbor, but yes, we would not be a tri-party agreement.
okay, and we'd be able to do it, last question on the lease, we'd be able to do this in such a way that it would mean that any future endeavors like this would still have to come before the council as opposed to giving a blank, now. Any of
To allow
these.
this. So that could be.
No presidential value.
Nope. Yeah, well,
No,
no, lease doesn't have, but
Outside entities. Council would do
Right.
something like that.
okay, okay, that would be something to keep in the back of the minds. But I think it's a great idea. The devil's in the details.
It's always about the details.
Do we need state approval for that?
Correct.
Okay.
Councilman Park, you have a question? No. Any other council members have questions? Right, so Deborah, do you need anything from us? Or
Not at
you
this
need to
time.
Do your thing.
Not at this time. Right now, we just have to do the footwork a little bit. I know, Wendy, I owe you a phone call back. And so it's just going to be a phone call.
An email right now.
But I think that's kind of where we're at right now. And I just want the council to understand the Nature Center's mission is education, preservation, recreation, and community engagement. So we're trying to find something that works with all of those things. It's not just one of those elements. So if we can find a recreative opportunity that also still preserves the space, engages with the community, and still provides opportunities for education, that's what we're really trying to focus on.
All right, so Deborah, thank you very much for coming here tonight. All the good work you and your team do up there. I think
you.
you've heard the questions from the council, and I think it's safe to say they're looking forward to more details from you. And so we'll see you soon. Thank you.
As when
Call
they
us
come
if
in.
you need
Thank you.
anything.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Bye. Okay, going to go on to the 2022 meeting schedule. Who's taking the lead on this? Jimmy, Wendy? I know Wendy, Wendy has a question about the November meeting. Go ahead.
Okay,
Omar, sorry, go ahead, Omar.
as every year, we, in the clerk's office, we, put together the meeting schedule for the next year. We use the chabad.org as our guidance to, work around, what days are, acceptable to be able to have our meetings. So that's kind of where we are. So what we have presented tonight is, pretty much a proposal of meeting dates that, it's up to the governing body to proceed with, if they would like to proceed with those dates for next year.
So Adam, Councilor Michaels, you have a comment?
So I'll just share a couple, there were a number of, I'll bring it to the attention and the council to decide. A few of them. The first one is, so January 3rd in sort of corporate America is like the national holiday for the first. So I would expect a lot of people to be away. My recommendation would be to move this meeting to Thursday, 6th, but could make it up. But Monday, I think people are going to be away. So I don't know if Sunday would be the right date for this. I'm sorry? Right, no, so I'm saying sometime other, I'll go through them and then sometime other than Sunday.
What about Tuesday, the 4th? Or,
Well, that's what we're talking about. We can move the date. We can,
family?
So family could come.
What about are we off on Monday at school, or is that, we're back in school? We're back in school. Okay.
you want to try to do it Monday night?
No, I would.
So that's fine, that's fine, not a problem. That's
I
fine.
might.
Tuesday, February 22nd is spring break in Tenafly.
When is this?
Tuesday, February 22nd
Oh.
is spring break in
Oh,
Tenafly.
yeah, so no meeting. I'm out for that
None?
one.
Sorry, I apologize. Winter break, February break. We're not allowed to.
President's- So I would like to switch that then too.
So Thursday, 24th, I would propose.
You want to do Tuesday, February 22nd and change it to Thursday, February 24th?
Yes.
Everybody good with that? Okay,
Tuesday, February 12th. I'm gonna get this wrong, but I think it's spring break. April 12th is spring break. I would assume no one's here either.
Yes, Sam.
So I don't know what you could do with that. Are we off that whole week?
which one is he saying?
April 12th. So why don't we do it the week before?
April 12th.
Wait, hold on. When's Passover? Yeah,
When's Passover?
Passover is
Easter.
Friday, April 15th until Saturday, April 23rd.
So let's do the first week in April.
Which one?
How about we move it to the first week in April?
Well, then we're going to have almost a month between April and May meetings.
Oh, but there's a vacation.
Oh, April 5th and the 26th?
What's
Fine
that?
with that.
Yep.
That's fine.
So April 5th?
Everybody good with that?
So April 5th and April 26th?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sure someone's just trying to test me. July 19th is a Tuesday, not a Monday. I don't know if we want it on a Monday or a Tuesday on July 19th.
We usually do a Monday.
It's Monday.
Yeah, because of the concerts.
So to move it to
Summer,
the
we usually
18th,
do
if that's
Mondays.
okay?
So that's July.
Monday, July 18th?
I'm glad someone looked at this.
Yeah, the 18th. Yeah.
Okay, so it's Monday, July 18th.
Yep,
Monday, July 18th.
yep.
All right, next.
And then my last one, another test, is Tuesday, December 7th. Is a Wednesday, so I assume we want it December 6th.
Gotcha.
December 6th. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, we need to talk about,
The November, December.
yeah,
Yes, so you have a public meeting on Tuesday, November 8th, and then you wouldn't have another regular meeting until December 13th.
I would add one because we're always super busy at the end of the year. We're always rushing everything through.
Time out actually, unless my calendar's wrong, it says election day is actually November 8th.
Yeah, it is. It's the first Tuesday after the first Monday in the month. I was just about to say.
Right,
So
so,
that's wrong.
so we can have a meeting on November 1st if we want.
So keep it on the first.
On Monday, the first.
Yep,
Tuesday, the first.
Tuesday the 1st.
All right, who looked at this calendar?
Okay, so we're having a meeting Tuesday, November 1st. Good.
And election day is on the 8th.
And then we can have it on November 15th.
Yes.
Tuesday, November 15th.
Is that
Why
on
not
the
the
week?
8th? Why not the 8th?
That is election.
Yeah, but I mean, we
Really
have a
make it
Tuesday,
November.
November 1st. We only have one meeting.
All
in
right, so
November.
here's the thing, for the week of, for the 15th, we're gonna do that Monday, November 14th instead.
In case there's a leak.
But typically, time out, because we don't have the calendar for the League of Municipalities, for 2022 as of yet, but typically the League of Municipality, conference is held that week.
Right, so, but that's
That's
why
why we're doing Monday.
Omar.
Okay.
Usually not
I'm sorry, I
Monday.
missed that, I'm sorry.
So we'll do Monday, November 14th.
I think we should go to 2 meetings because our November and December meetings are always jam-packed. We're always trying to finish up a lot of the work product that we've done. So I would like to have that.
You would like
What
to
do you
have one?
think? No, Jeff asked why I'm asking for the second
Okay,
meeting.
all right, so many people.
Let me-
Go ahead, Jeff.
My question was, right now, we tentatively have one meeting scheduled for November. And now we just agreed to make the meeting November 1st instead of the 8th. Why, and my question was, why are we looking to schedule a second meeting in November when we generally have one? That's fine. Council President.
Be 6 weeks in between.
That's a long time. That's fine. And then my other question, and I'm sure we have some historic reason for doing this, why we have the 2 separate meetings in December, committee versus regular, when that's the only time we do it all year. I couldn't remember why we do this.
Because ordinances. Anything important at the end of the year?
Well, so ordinances need 2 readings and have to be done within the same calendar year. But you cannot introduce an ordinance and then have a public 7 days later. So you have to have at least 10 days in between the publication of an ordinance until you public hearing. Which is why you're usually 2 weeks apart.
But that's why December looks like that. because we
Well,
don't-
so this is a
we
work
couldn't-
session, no action taken, like
Right,
tonight,
right.
and then you have your publication for the public meeting.
But
the
then
next
that's not- we can-
So either
can't-
way, you
can't
can
be live.
introduce an ordinance of both of them.
We just read those and stuff.
Okay.
So then
If you were
that-
gonna want 2 December meetings to be able to do action, they have
Why
to
is it
be
split?
Okay,
Sorry.
any other questions about the calendar? Of the meeting
I
schedule?
didn't really get an answer to the question of why why
I
is
think
this
it's a-
the only
it's a-
month we?
It's a historical anomaly.
It's a historic anomaly.
That's all it
We
is.
need to keep doing that.
Well, based on the agenda we have tonight, I would vote that on Tuesday, December 6th, it'd be a committee of the whole and a regular meeting. I would recommend that. But that's up to the
But then we
council.
don't meet again for
Nope.
another 6 weeks.
No, we'll meet December 13th.
Oh, you still want.
Oh, yeah.
So you want
Be
a
able to
full,
have an ordinance.
you want a full meeting on the 6th and then a regular,
Oh, we have to have the regular, it's signed time. That's
Yeah,
why it's.
yeah,
that's
that
it.
was, yeah, that could
Is
have
it what?
been.
Sign dime.
Is that one?
December 13th meeting doesn't get adjourned.
Yeah, that's
Correct.
right.
That's
That's why it's like that.
Okay, so on the 6th, there'll be a regular meeting and a committee meeting and a committee of the whole. All right, Omar, you squared away on all that?
And one other thing, for the reorg meeting, do you want us, continue with the process of having Say Cheese or any other, vendor within town to provide the refreshments?
So I would recommend, unless anyone disagrees, that as soon as the recess meeting is done, we immediately go on to the reorg meeting. We don't take a break in between.
no, for cookies
Well,
and
we can have-
cheese.
We could have a party afterwards. In the lobby, sure.
So you want to do it afterwards?
Yeah, I think, what does everyone think? I would vote for cookies and cake afterwards, and then we get the meetings out of the way, and everyone can celebrate.
I'm really breaking
Yeah,
it.
people don't want to sit through them.
What?
People who visit, like, people come in, they don't want to sit through a meeting.
The recess meeting, you're closing.
Yeah.
Your team meeting, you don't swear in until the rework meeting, so people are coming for the.
The later one. Okay.
And this year is, everyone is going to be the same, so. Right. Okay, so we're all on the same page, Omar?
So afterwards,
After the whole thing,
Okay.
correct? We'll get all our business done.
say cheese.
Yes, sure, absolutely.
It's a local Tenafly business.
It'll be guaranteed a local content. We always do that. Okay, on the backside of this page, the holiday schedule, when Borough Hall is closed, just take a quick look.
No Jewish holidays, I see. It's not like the first night of Passover. I know. I know.
Okay. All right, Omar, we're good with the calendar?
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Question about to you kind of about what you just asked, but in your second. So if someone's swearing us in, they're really not coming at 12 o'clock, they're coming for 12:30.
Yes.
Okay, Omar, dude, we talked about.
No.
No,
It depends on the flow of the meeting, so it's,
yeah, so Omar, she's raised a good question.
Yeah.
So should we say 12:15 instead of 12:30? Is there gonna be much for us to do? What do you think? Or we just keep it at 12:30? Okay, good.
I would say keep it.
Okay. Good enough, just asking a question. Okay, let's go on to item number C, Bergen County Community Development Block Grant. Who's got that one, Jimmy?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. At the last meeting, I made available the information shared to us about a grant opportunity through the county, through our engineering firm. And the best opportunity, we felt, and the best need at this time, and serving a population that would best fit that grant would be the senior center and upfitting the bathrooms there to make them updated, to make them ADA compliant. The estimate that was received from our engineer for construction and engineering fees was $246,000. So if that's something that the council would like to proceed with, we could submit for, at the next meeting, the necessary forms and the action to submit if the council would like to move forward with that project.
Just for clarification, the 246,000 includes the actual construction of the bathrooms and the full demo of those bathrooms. That's not just engineering costs, that's the actual work.
Correct. It's engineering fees and construction fees.
Okay.
Yep, A to Z. And that's what we would, if we were to move forward, what we would apply for, but does not mean we will get that amount. We could be up to that amount, but maybe a portion.
Everyone good with that? Any
No, I'm
suggestions?
not good with this at all,
Okay,
Jimmy.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, it's,
I just got a quote to do 2 bathrooms, and I understand it's not complete, ADA compliant, but it's soup to nuts down to the studs, rip out every single thing, and together they're like around 30. This quote is so unbelievably outrageous. I want it itemized. I want to see what it costs.
So this isn't a quote yet, this is an estimate of the quote?
It's
Even as an
outrageous.
Right,
estimate,
so-
it's very high.
Hold on a second. So folks, so this isn't a quote?
I get it,
This has to go out to bid, right?
but this number, I need to understand what they think needs to go in for $246,000. This is just, I even spoke to my plumber, I'm like, there's nothing here with bars, slanting, pitching things, ramps, anything that should meet anywhere near this amount of money. I want it itemized, I want to see it, I don't want to bid it out until we see exactly what's going into it. This is crazy. For this, we can build a new senior center.
What about other council members? Because then we need to have blueprints and architects do all kinds of.
I mean, I'm not saying yes to this.
Go ahead, Beno.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with, Aiton that, you know, the number, on the face of it is just outrageous. Outrageously high. And, you know, we should know what, where they came up with the 246. I'm not saying that it's wrong, I'm just saying, you know, how did they, you know, come up with it? We don't have to get architectural drawings for that justification.
You called
That's
Colliers?
it's a more refined question. So Jimmy, why don't we contact Colliers and ask them how they arrived at that number? And at the next meeting, we'll come back to the council to discuss that. But don't expect bids back, right? You're not gonna see that.
I fully understand that, but for our engineering firm to come back, unless we're literally demolishing that part of the building, rebuilding the building with separate access from outside or something, that number should be a quarter or a fifth
So
of
we'll
that.
have to come back and explain how they arrived at that number and what's going on.
But also make the point, I'm not spending up to that money. That's way too high for 2 bathrooms.
Yes, Vanu.
Sorry, just to add on to that, if there is an intention, as Senior Center has made it clear that they want to consider a new place for their home, putting in this kind of money into something that'll be just for a couple of years, it doesn't make sense.
Correct.
That's a lot of money.
It is, and we were,
Just for my clarification, when we're talking about community development block grants, are those matching grants or are those outright 100% grants?
Matching, I believe.
Okay, I just wanna,
we had asked last time for a comparison, at least I asked for a comparison of what this would cost for the senior center versus what it would cost for the ADA compliant in the McCandless room and the youth center, because
Yeah, McCandless room, I asked about the McCandless room, that one, I believe they said I asked them about the remaining bathrooms in this building and McCandless. I believe that one's already, either there's not enough physical room to expand to make it ADA compliant, or it's already ADA compliant, which is the remaining bathrooms that we've asked for, the ones out here and the ones in McCandless room.
the teen center and the youth center bathrooms, I don't believe are ADA. compliant.
Yeah,
Hold on, let's say focus on this for a second before the youth center. You have a question, Vanu? No. Okay, so I have a question regarding the grant itself and the application. Just so the council understands, what are the deadlines to that?
December 20th is when it would have to be submitted for consideration to the county.
Okay, so does council want to wait to apply for the grant? Because we've got a little bit of a chicken and egg here. So applying for the grant doesn't lock us into any of the cost proposals. So should we apply for the grant?
The only item associated with that is if we retain them for their grant writing services, which is $3,800.
I'm sorry, this is just, how is this given to us without the other information? This,
Because this is about the
Can we-
grant, not about.
I understand, but again, I'm not committing our borough to 150K here, or 125K, without having a sense of where that money's going towards.
All right, so just to be clear, we're not committing the borough to any amount of money other than the grant we're talking about tonight. The question becomes, do we want to apply for the grant or not?
Mayor, may I make a
You got it,
suggestion?
yeah.
I could come back with the breakout of the details of the financials at the next meeting. And then at the next meeting, we could, if the council wants to move in that direction, we still could, because taking the action.
And there'll be enough time?
Yeah, there'd be enough time.
There you have it, okay? Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. At least it could be considered for that option for the council.
Okay, so we'll decide the next meeting, and by then we'll have more data.
yeah, and just to the point of, we're not committing the borough, I get that, but these are public discussions, these grants people know about, and I don't want someone to say, okay, Tenafly got X hundreds of thousands of dollars, so here's my bid based on, because that's how people will.
Yeah.
So that's why this number really should not necessarily be the number that we are asking for, because we will end up spending.
Okay, all right,
Thank you.
all right. Let's go on to the next item, renaming the Tenafly train station.
I can take
Councilman
that.
Grossman, you want to talk to us about this?
Sure do. So less than a year ago, there was a student who's a 6th grader who came and contacted us, Aki Benjamin, about the idea of naming something in honor of Elizabeth Cady Stanton. It was referred to the HPC. He was actually involved in some of the discussions with the HPC, which is wonderful. And through those discussions, we narrowed down the list of what we wanted to really seriously consider. And a lot of things were kicked off that list for many reasons. And if anyone wants to know why didn't you consider A, B, and C, I can always answer that. But the bottom line is that the recommendation was to rename the Tenafly train station, which currently has no name. To name it in honor of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, it would take the council naming, it's our property. That does not take away from anybody who is a lessee. And it would just be, for example, Cafe Angelique at the Elizabeth Cady Stanton train station. It actually gives it more of a, cooler name. But it does take the council discussing this, approving that's merely a recommendation. And if anyone has questions, I can definitely address it. They did put in here, she used to take the train from there. It's very relevant. We had discussed ultimately getting a statue of her and maybe putting it in Hyler Park. So she would be looking ultimately at her station. So there's a lot of cool factors to this. And it also gives the town, since we were talking earlier about downtown revitalization and there's a certain branding that part of the branding is having had one of the most famous women's rights advocates lived in our town for over 20 years. So I'll take questions if anyone has. Or
Go ahead, Councilwoman Day. What?
No remark this time?
No.
So Jeff, thank you, and thank you to the HPC for making this recommendation. Having studied Elizabeth Cady Stanton with our 19th Amendment group, it's incredible the work that she got accomplished through this train station. Not only did she herself ride it, but she sent suffragettes with information that she would prepare. She sent Susan B. Anthony with speeches that were then used as motivation, as unionizing tactics for the women, as support systems for having those outside of the women's rights movements come in and have something to say, well, look, I got this pamphlet and I'm gonna follow through with it. This was really the seminal place for the crusade that helped turn the movement. And yes, the speeches happened in New York, but the work happened here in Tenafly. And it's so appropriate that we name our iconic railroad station after her. So thank you for this. I would love to see this happen. I'm fully in support. And, again, I still want an Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Women's Rights Museum to follow, but this is an excellent, excellent start. So thank you.
and
Thank
it
you.
goes hand in hand with the walking tour that will be forthcoming.
And thank you to David Wall for that work. That was incredible work. We're so lucky to have an incredible HPC committee.
Question.
Mhm.
Jeff, this is like the 110th anniversary of the Triangle Waistcoat Fire. You're talking about unionization,
Yeah.
women's rights, right? Isn't it around now? Wasn't it? What month was that?
I don't know.
It's winter, right?
I wish I did know.
No, that wasn't to put you on the spot.
I could tell you, there are a lot of things I could tell you. Today is National Cotton Candy Day,
Today's the
which it really
anniversary.
is, and the anniversary, the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, but I'll look that up.
Okay, so what's the next step with this? Do any other council members have questions?
Think we vote on it? Jeff, do we vote on it?
I don't know.
So we'll have it on for the next meeting, by resolution? By ordinance? How does this work?
It would be resolution.
By resolution? Okay, for the next meeting.
Please let the student know.
No, definitely.
Very happy.
Okay. Is Matt here? Because the next item is 16 West Clinton. Matt?
Oh, March 25th, 1911. There you go.
Now you're gonna bust my chance.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we do, please.
Before Matt starts, I just want to point out that this came up, the specific item came up as a part of our package of resolutions back in October 5th, and pulled it out as a vote on as a separate resolution. To my understanding, we actually voted as a body to not allow it to proceed. So I'm wondering what the basis of this, discussion is going to be about.
Sure. So there were questions from the council as part of the reasons why the vote went the way it did. And part of those questions were there wasn't enough explanation or any explanation from the applicant of what was going on. So the council had opportunity to question them. And there was also no input from the site plan committee of the planning board. And so the applicant went out and is prepared to answer any questions the council has tonight and, do a 5-minute, 10-minute elevator pitch. And we do have a response from the site plan committee of the planning board as to their opinion of this, to give the council an opportunity to see the whole thing full-fledged at this stage.
That was the discussion we had on that night, or did that?
We had that
discussion
discussion
come-
that night.
And because I don't remember anything about the site plan committee.
I don't know if we specifically talked about the site plan committee, but we talked about in general, so don't quote me on site plan versus planning board, but we generally talked about members of the planning board weighing in on what they thought of this before we made any decision to send it back to them for full consideration.
Okay, I mean, that doesn't, I don't recollect anything with the planning board, having them weigh in.
Okay, Councilwoman Dayton?
So after we voted, I did ask Jeff Zinn, I said, Jeff, why is this crossing our desk? There was absolutely no information here for us to vote on.
You asked him on that day or was it later on?
Later on.
Okay.
I said, something came from the planning board. I just want to understand process here. If something comes from the planning board, we need information. We can't vote on something without information. So I said, what is the appropriate way to ask for this request? I understand the study hasn't been done yet, but how are we supposed to analyze whether it's an appropriate ask if nothing is before us? And no testimony happened, no presentation happened. There's nothing from the planning board. And he said, okay, he said, I will come back to my planning board and we'll talk process on our side. And from what I understand, I think this is a result of it. And I'm not sure if Mr. Capizzi is here today to do it. I'd like to give him the time if he wants to present.
Yeah, so under local redevelopment and housing law, the process for an area in need of redevelopment is, and I'm just summarizing this, but a governing body adopts a resolution directing the planning board to undertake a preliminary.
Okay.
So we did not adopt a resolution.
No.
We said no. So they did not have the authority to undertake a preliminary investigation of an area for redevelopment criteria and conduct a public hearing or any of that. I can tell you as a member of the planning board, there was no discussion of the planning board directing a committee of the planning board to do anything. The committee never reported back to the planning board that they were doing anything. So this is actually a committee of a board basically acting almost ultra vires to take the responsibility to make a recommendation to us. I don't know procedurally how that happens, but it did.
Happened. So we went through this process for the gas station property.
Correct.
So, you're on the planning board. So when that got put to the planning board, they came to us though with information. Do you remember we had like a short memo and said, we think it's going to fall under the, the statute under these sections and a little bit of a blurb. And then we said yes, and then tasked them back to do the full study and estimate. And then we got the full report on it. We got to vote on it. Here, we didn't get that memo. Well, that's what I'm asking.
So what likely happened, and I wasn't here, but just putting on my lawyer's hat, what likely happened is they were authorized to go ahead and do the study. When they did the study, they came back and gave you saying, we think that it does qualify under these criteria, then you would authorize them. that's what you get back after public whatnot becomes an ordinance and sets the zoning for the redevelopment area that's been set. So
But
it's a
even the
two-part process.
preliminary, that first part,
I think Wendy is right.
They different asks. When the gas station came, we had enough, I felt like we had enough information to say, go study it. Is that,
yeah, but
what
I'm
is your
not
memory
sure that it came from planning board as much.
as the applicant?
I'm not sure that came from planning board as much as the applicant in that.
Talking about Solero.
Yeah.
I believe that came from the applicant.
Right.
Because it was kind of the same, excuse the phrase, the chicken and the egg situation, right? The planning board can't study anything until this regard. So the council says, okay, study it so that we can see what's going on.
Right, but we as a board, and I believe Jeff's making this point, said last time we had nothing to go on.
Correct.
So we said, we're not gonna go ahead and task somebody to do all these studies with nothing to go on.
Which is why.
So now-
That doesn't bother me as much as a committee of a
The
board.
state plan committee did this, not the full planning board.
They're a committee of the board created under bylaws.
Correct.
So they do not operate independent of the planning board. They are a committee of the planning board that had not been tasked with doing this, did not report back to the board. That becomes a procedural, no, that becomes a procedural issue.
So
Should not have been done that.
So the question becomes, is this is back to the chicken and the egg problem.
But how did this not go, how did the site committee not say, our site committee met and now we're gonna tell the planning board
Right.
as a whole?
That did not
So,
happen.
so let's back up for a second.
I'm sorry.
Go
The
ahead.
planning board wouldn't have the authority
To say, boo,
to say
Right.
that they want to do a study. All they, it's only that you can authorize the planning board.
Right, so if the planning board doesn't have the authority, how does a committee created by the planning board, by its bylaws, have more authority than the planning board?
Well, it's a site plan committee on a regular basis reviewing projects before they get to the planning.
Well,
board.
this is more of a legal question.
Okay, so I can't answer a legal question.
I would have answered in the same fashion. Site plan committee is almost like a pre-application. This is nothing that is requiring hearing, nothing they can say could bind anybody. Site plan review. And I wasn't there. I'm speaking just in hypotheticals. If someone comes in with a potential site plan that would require maybe a D variance or a use variance, something that doesn't fit what is there, but yet in reviewing it with the site plan committee, rather than potentially thinking of a variance to the zoning board, or is it worth looking at the area for maybe a rezoning effort? It may also be part of that conversation where it's like, this property is underutilized. It may very well fall under the land use law as an area in need of redevelopment or an area in need of rehabilitation. Perhaps it should be studied as such before other efforts are done. And my guess, again, conjecture here, I'm not part of the subcommittee, but that may be where this is coming.
Adam, go ahead.
Yes. I work with my personal coach. One of the things that I've been told is to ask why more often. And I guess if I understand this correctly, this whole conversation is around, let's let someone else spend their own time and money on bringing us a proposal that we could then decide, is it worth being an area in need of redevelopment? So we're not guaranteeing anything. If anything, we're making someone waste their time and money that they're willing to do to bring us forward. Is that correct? As I best understand what the sort of vote would be? Are we letting someone spend their time and money on coming to us with a proposal to make this an area in need of development?
So the proposal, the pitch is to see if the council is interested in authorizing the planning board to do that study.
Exactly.
That's it.
So perfect. So I guess my question to the council would be, I see this as only a win. There's no downside. So I guess I would ask my fellow council people, why wouldn't we let somebody make a proposal to us?
So my problem isn't so much with that, but you're one, like me, concerned about how long these meetings go on. We already had a resolution voted. The question becomes, what if this becomes our standard operating procedure? We don't like the outcome, so we're gonna take every resolution, we're gonna revote them all. We're gonna double our meeting times, we're gonna reconsider them, and that would not be good. Number two, we do have, a certain accountability, and when you have a group meeting outside of the public realm, for people making certain decisions to recommend, that also procedurally should be a concern, at least that we stop and look at. So it's not so much, don't focus on the application. That's not where I'm going with this. I'm going more on procedure and time, our time.
I think if anything, the learning was, and no fault or anything, I think it came to us too quickly in the sense that it was the first time I saw it. Like, I never heard anything before we voted on it. I think in hindsight, everything's a learning process. I agree with you. Maybe I'm tied with you on making these meetings shorter. So yes, I don't want to hear it twice, but if it does come to us, at least let's all seven of us be prepared. I agree with everything you said.
So Jeff, I hear you on the process, and to me, this memo, I'm putting it aside. I think our council unfortunately made a mistake the last time this came before us. I think we should have called up a representative of the project. I think we should have asked questions directly. I think they should have had the opportunity to pitch it. I'd like to offer that tonight. Regardless of this memo, we have an applicant here in front of us who did not have the opportunity to present. We had nothing to decide on the last time this came, which made it an easy no for me. So now, I don't think that opportunity happened, so I don't think it's sort of double dipping. And so if my council would allow, I would like this applicant to present. And then,
So the only question, because someone put it on the agenda last time.
so
It
I
doesn't
didn't.
get on the agenda by itself.
Right.
This should have been done then.
I
And yes,
agree with you.
I agree, there was
with
a
you.
mistake, this is learning, but, I don't even know who made the mistake. I don't know who didn't allow the applicant. The applicant was here last time and was not afforded the opportunity, and yet whoever put it
The
on.
mayor's saying it's his fault.
All right,
I take responsibility for that.
that's fine,
Okay?
that's fine.
I mean, he had to
Then-
sit through like a 3-hour meeting and wear his mask.
Yeah,
So is everyone ready to hear his 5-minute elevator pitch or 10, and then?
5 minutes.
Sure.
So procedurally.
Identify yourself, please, and who you are.
But
Yes,
before
go
that,
ahead, Vanessa.
again, procedurally, what happens to the resolution that we voted against?
What happens, what?
To the resolution that we voted against at that
Well, that,
meeting?
we followed, we did not send it to the planning board for study. We followed the council's vote. If the council makes the same or either the same or different decision tonight, we follow whatever the decision is.
And I want to just make sure we know what section of this ordinance or this code they're asking to fall under. I need that answered.
Did you hear that, Mr. Capizzi? Yes. Okay, so go ahead, please.
So,
Just
Mr. Mayor,
identify
members of the
yourself.
council, for those that are unfamiliar with me, my name is Matthew Capizzi, 11 Hillside Avenue in Tenafly. Proud to say I'm a local practitioner in the municipality for the last probably 17 years. I've been in private solo practice on my own for about 13 years. And throughout that time, I've had the occasion to really get familiar with the downtown area of the municipality, as well as the single-family residential housing stock, and looking forward to really becoming a part of the process where we're revitalizing the downtown. Now, I stayed in my office this evening. I left around 7:15 to come here. There's no one in the downtown. The Tenafly Diner, I'm sure, is dying for people to come in, looking for a reason to stay open, looking for a reason to bring staff in and keep that business open, to not only pay their tax bills, but to pay their landlord, their vendors, and maybe bring some money home at the end of the day. And that same story, that same theme carries itself all the way through the properties along West Railroad, all the way up and down Washington Street. You had a planner here this evening that spoke about some means of trying to bring traffic down to the downtown. Respectfully, those kinds of elements are not going to result in the revitalization that's necessary to really encourage retailers to say, you know what, there's enough foot traffic here. We need a warrant to open up a new shop that's going to sell a widget, a T-shirt, whatever it may be. In order to encourage the downtown area, those landlords to improve their facades, redo some of their infrastructure, they need foot traffic. I'm excited to say that Mr. Cohen, who's been a developer in the Bergen County area, he's done projects in Tenafly, mostly in the single-family realm, is under contract to purchase 16 West Clinton and 15 Franklin Street. And the objective there is to do a mid-rise apartment building, 4 floors of apartments over 2 floors of parking. It's the kind of project that will generate essentially roughly 75 units, 11 COA units. Municipality certainly has an obligation in the next round that has yet to be calculated. So these units, because it's not part of the municipality's agreement with fair share housing, it's going to count as double credits. So 11 units generates 22 COA credits. Those 73 households are going to be of a medium to high income level, with the exception of the 11 affordable housing units. We're not doing vanilla box cookie cutter units. They're going to be high-end units, the kind of tenants that will look to the opportunity to frequent the jewelry store at the corner of Washington Street, that will frequent downtown vendors that are here already and those that will come in the future. The project has been designed with a aesthetically pleasing facade. We really spent a fair amount of attention to the proposed elevations associated with the building because we're looking to really be a catalytic development. This is a project that we think is unique. Boards, councils are typically concerned about domino effects. Well, Matt, if we allow you to go here to this extent, what stops the next guy from trying to do what you did here? Well, case in point, my property is very unique. It's a large scale piece. It's over an acre in size. But it has some shortcomings. To the rear of the piece is the Tenafly Brook. Now, what's the significance of that? As a result of the Tenafly Brook, we have what they call a flood hazard area. That essentially takes a good portion of the property out of the area for potential development. We can't do anything in that area because of the buffers associated with the Tenafly Brook. The Tenafly Brook also causes the property to have a high water table, so we can't go down. So if we can't go wide and we can't go down, the only option is to go vertical, and we have to go closer to the roadway. We can't slide the building back towards the residences. I apologize, it's the cross street that's behind me, but we cannot go towards those residential properties because of the buffer area that's required at that location. So the project's going to be close to Franklin and to Washington Street. But at the upper levels, as we get at the uppermost floor, we'll step back 10 feet. Some of the other hardships of the property, certainly because of the Tenafly Brook, again, it has the occasion to flood. Certainly there was flooding with regard to Ida. Some element of that will be corrected by virtue of this project. And how am I going to go about correcting that? Well, there is a culvert on the piece that's probably 70, 80 years old. It's in disrepair. Doesn't function as it was originally intended, as it was originally constructed. The developer is prepared at its cost to make that public improvement at private cost. Now, that's only a section of the culvert. We acknowledge that, but still, nonetheless, it's an infrastructure improvement that's owned by the municipality that we would either replace at our own cost or pay into a fund, and the municipality could hire a third-party vendor to do that work. But in all likelihood, because it's on our piece, it would be something that would be part of our development project and be part of a developer's agreement eventually, whatever iteration eventually may get approved for this project. But ultimately, whatever my client decides, we're looking here to have a cooperative relationship with the council. And I think when we talk about interests of redeveloping a downtown, we have to look at developers as friends, because the council has a vision. There's not enough money in the taxpayer coffers to accomplish that vision on its own. We need developers in order to carry out that vision. That's who I represent. Now, there may have been some hiccups in the process initially 2 months ago. I certainly apologize for that. There's no intention to skip a step or to move too fast, and that's what transpired. Certainly, I apologize for that. I don't want to rush in the wrong direction. So you say to me, Matt, I want you to go back home. I want you to speak to a planner. I want you to prepare your own planning assessment about what parameters of the redevelopment statute you think you meet. I'm happy to do that. I was fortunate enough to have to work on the 343, the Valero gas station. I'm familiar with the process that was utilized there, and I thought I had mimicked that process here, but if not, no problem. We'll infill it as necessary. But ultimately, we're looking to really get this project underway, and it requires a redevelopment plan, and it requires a pilot agreement. Now, a pilot agreement is not a zero tax obligation agreement. It's a scenario where we're willing to pay the municipality 10% of our gross receipts. And what does that ultimately generate? That generates approximately, in the initial stages of the project, again, based upon conservative estimates of rents to be taken in, around $220,000 a year in taxes, with the municipality being able to keep 95% of that. Now, when you compare that to today's tax allocation, the site at present only generates $50,000 in taxes, and only approximately 20% of that is retained by the municipality, with the other share going out to other state agencies. Now, the pilot agreement is necessary for multiple things. If we're going to make the infrastructure improvements, we need some assistance to help us amortize that. If we're going to provide 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 COA units, we need some participation to allow that to happen. If we're going to provide high-end units of a certain scale, the building's going to require certain finishes that allow certain clientele to come into the neighborhood, helps further support the downtown. So when I talk about the cooperative, it's those kinds of things that I'm referencing. So again, the pilot agreement, yes, it does result in somewhat of an economic assistance to the developer, by no means a windfall, because without the pilot agreement, the project there's no shovel in the ground, because you can't have all of the pluses I just talked about and 100% of an ad valorem tax liability all kicking on day one, which would be astronomical, and the project just wouldn't be economically viable. We do have some renderings that I can pass around to the council to illustrate what it is that we're seeking to do. But overall, we're excited about the project. Yes, it's something unique to the downtown. There isn't a building of this size in the present commercial area, and there aren't properties of this size in the commercial area, with the exception of the 16 West Clinton assemblage that I just referenced. So I think there are no concerns relative to a potential domino effect. I think the property is unique in its own right. The property certainly can accommodate the unit count that we're discussing. We can park it. We're planning on parking it at 2 vehicles per unit. The project will result in the creation of about 15 parking stalls along North Franklin. Right now, there's a 300 linear feet of drop curb along North Franklin for that situation where the permanent parking lot is located, where cars are backing out onto North Franklin. So we're going to be creating 15 on-street parking spots, which will help further support the downtown. But again, this is a one step of many. All we're asking to do is to have the council authorize the planning board to undertake a study at Mr. Cohen's expense. So we would post an escrow in order to have Burgess Associates undertake a study to determine whether any of the redevelopment parameters are met. Depending on the findings of the Burgess report, council would make a recommendation to the planning board, would make a recommendation to the council about whether to declare it an area need or not. But again, we're not there yet. We're essentially just looking for the ability to have the planning board authorize a study so we can start the process and hopefully get this exciting project underway.
Pass those renderings to Omar, the clerk will hand it out. Then we'll take any questions from the council.
Omar, I'm not sure if you can get this so our public can see it. Can I give this to you so can you get it so our public can see it?
All right, who has a question for Mr. Capizzi? Dan? Jeff? Yes, please.
So just to be clear, when you were talking about the pilot, and you said that under the pilot, 5% of the taxes would go to others, whereas right now you said, and if I'm quoting you correctly, 20% goes to other state agencies, is how you put it.
22% is retained by Tenafly, the balance goes to other agencies.
All right.
So right now you're collecting.
When you're talking about other agencies that won't be getting the money if there's a pilot, are we talking about the Board of Education, the town of Tenafly?
Well, the Tenafly.
Are we talking about that? Yes
That
or
is-
no?
Is a 5% that the municipality is free to give to the Board of Education. So 95% is given to the borough for the borough to spend however it wishes.
But boards and boroughs have separate budgets. You know that, I know that. So right now, approximately 70% of taxes collected go to the Board of Education.
65%.
65%. That number drops, right, in the event of a pilot.
Does.
Okay, I just want to be clear that because that's not another state agency, that's what our borough residents then have going towards our schools. So I just want to be clear on that. And you're looking at 6 stories here?
Correct.
Where's the closest, not counting Englewood Hospital, what's the closest 6-story mixed-use development to Tenafly currently?
Be able to answer that.
All right, is there one in Cresskill?
Be able to answer.
Okay.
I just don't know off the top of my head. It's not something I looked at.
Okay. And my last question, of the 8 criteria for an area, for studying an area in need of redevelopment, which one of the 8 are you
That's my
looking
question.
for? Because you didn't say that.
One, and I would say we fall under subsections A, based upon it.
Go through that. Sorry.
So the buildings that are there are substandard, unsafe, unsanitary, dilapidated, or obsolete?
Yep, the drive-through is certainly a dramatic underutilization of the lot. The infrastructure on the lot is over 50 years old. The parking scenario.
So am I.
Unfortunately, the municipal land use law clarifies anything that has infrastructure 50 years or older is qualifying as a redevelopment criteria.
And after A, what else did you say?
The subsection D.
The lessons overcrowding, faulty arrangement or design, or detrimental to the safety, health, morals, or welfare of the community. Thank you.
It's certainly stacked.
Thank you.
Productive. Right, it's one big layer of blacktop. But go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Cohn, for being here. Thank you for the beautiful graphics. These are things that, the planning board will consider. All this council has to do is whether it's reasonable that either A or D would apply here. So I want to ask again, this won't go past our table here unless we think there's a reasonable reality to falling under that statute. I'm still not seeing that showing. And I think that this group will not vote it forward to study unless we think one of those statute sections is a reasonable request. So can we go through this again? Under A, it's not just that there's 50 years old, because Wells Fargo and that drive-through is not 50 years old.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not. And right now, the municipality and its residents utilize that parking lot. I park there all the time. I'm just telling you, we use it for our special events. It's not something that's not used right now. What I need to see is that this ask for us to go study this for the next 6 months is not going to be a waste. At the end of it, there will be a rational relation to this statute. it will be an argument that is reasonable on its face. So I'm going to ask the same question I asked at the beginning. What, and Jeff just tried to ask, and if you don't mind, borrow the statute again. And you don't have to have it exact here, but you gotta give me a stronger argument because I'm not seeing it. Why is this particular piece of land, this property, appropriate to study as an area in need of redevelopment? And I'll ask that to you again, because I need something other than generalities here.
Respectfully, that's an issue that will be spoken about by the planning
study.
board's
I know,
planner.
it's chicken and egg. It's a very hard chicken and egg.
Yeah, to say to me, Matt, prove to me now that you're going to qualify for the area needs inconsistent with the very statute that we're talking about.
I hear you.
You know,
It's,
and honest with you, if this takes more than a month or two, the project's dead.
well, listen,
We're contract purchasers. I just want to be open book here. We're contract purchasers. We've been playing around with this for a while now. And time, unfortunately, like everything else, flicks away every moment of the day.
listen, there's a
So-
lot of developers here, so again,
There aren't actually though.
there
There
are.
really aren't. I mean, you can see.
And this is,
If you came down Washington Street in the last 24 hours,
look,
they're not here.
my
In the single family
questions,
residential context, maybe.
my
But
questions,
unfortunately, it hasn't spilled over to the downtown area.
my questions are not whether I like the project or not. That's not my role. That gets to be the
Right.
planning board. I unfortunately don't sit on that board. So whether I love this concept or not is not the question before me as a council person. The only question I have is whether it's appropriate for me to task you guys to spend your money and the planning board to go through this exercise. If it's 6 months, it's so far-fetched that this doesn't fall under the statute. So I'm saying, you don't have to prove it to me, but I need a reasonable basis to move this forward under this statute.
Understood. Well, unfortunately, what I have for you now is what I have for you now, which is the fact that the property is flood prone by virtue of its proximity to the Tenafly Brook. The property is dramatically underutilized by virtue of the fact that it's just a parking lot. It's generating limited tax dollars to the municipality, which we spoke about. The infrastructure, whether we talk about the building itself, the parking area, or more importantly, the culvert system. The culvert for certain, is over 50 years old. Those are some of the general parameters that warrant the fact that the area will, in my opinion, be declared an area that will fit some of the parameters outlined here when it's studied by the planning board's planner.
So if I could just jump in here, I think some of these questions are very well-meaning, and I understand why you're asking them, but truthfully, they can't be answered unless the study's done.
It's chicken and egg, but I
don't understand that hesitancy.
Property that is very difficult to develop because of buffer areas, because of the culvert.
making your argument.
There has to be access to the culvert, so you'll have to have a raised structure over it anyway. So there are certain things that make it difficult to develop, whether that rises to an area in need, you don't know until the planner studies.
Wendy's doing you a service here because she hears my frustration. Fine. It is a chicken and an egg. It is a chicken and
I'm
egg.
going to jump in here for a second. So we've got a parking lot in the middle of downtown. You know, over the past, whatever, 6 to 12 months, we've lamented different types of stores that have moved into the municipality that we don't particularly want to have here. And we've got this empty lot. Wells Fargo is clearly selling the lot. Someone's going to buy the lot and build something on it, okay? And this is about if we want to improve our downtown and the residents want our downtown improved and enlightened and enlivened down there, we need to have people living there. And we're not voting here tonight to build this project or allow anyone to build it. We're simply asking if there's an opportunity to study it to see if it's worthwhile. At the end of the day, that's it. Well, go ahead, Dr. O'Connor.
So I like the way you feed that up, Mayor. When you said that we have a lot and it's going to be sold by Wells Fargo and some developer is going to buy that and they're going to build something. I keep going back to kind of a fundamental question for myself, though, as a person who represents the townspeople who live here right now. So at the last few meetings, we have people coming in talking, very concerned about issues regarding flooding, for example. We get a lot of that, feedback from our residents. So that's just one example of the fact that we do keep hearing from people that they want us to have a certain amount of control over the areas that we can exercise that control, right? So like we hear like, oh, these, the houses that are going up are too big for the lot that they're on. And, and we keep coming back at them and we say, okay, well, there's only a certain amount we can do within the regulations that are currently here in the town for whatever the reason is. My concern about saying, yeah, go ahead and study for this particular area to be a need of improvement would be, it's another step in our releasing more control. So we have parameters, a regulation, and someone's gonna build something there within those, and and the traditional way would be, okay, maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody else, goes to the planning board and says, okay, here's our plan, and here's what we want to do within the rules that what we can do in this town, and we'd like to apply for this variance or not. And they do it the traditional way, and then the planning board comes and says, hey, council, this is what we worked out. My concern with going this other way and saying, hey, this is a need of improvement area, is we're kind of like saying, okay, look, it might be that to Lauren's point, they don't prove that there is a need of improvement area. But my concern about even going out of the gate with it is that we're releasing even more control. And I have more comfort of being like, okay, this is how our town planner and, many councils and many mayors before us have said, this is how we want the town to be organized. And, and I keep hearing from residents, I don't know about you, that they want to even, tighten some of those regulations. My worry about saying, okay, go and study this for a zone of need and improvement is that we're actually releasing more control. That would be the reason I'm hesitant to have it proceeded that way rather than a traditional way.
So it's really well said. It makes sense. Just for, again, please challenge, just make sure I'm saying it right. I can look at the same thing and say the opposite, which is by doing something like this, we actually get control. We work with them. If I don't know the rules that are in that zone, if that zone says you can build 2 stories and everything looks like zigzags, you don't even have to go to the planning board, because if you don't have any variances a la gun shop or some of the other things that have come our way that we're not happy about, because they don't ask for variances, it doesn't go to anybody. So I could actually argue, I'm not sure what this is going to be, we actually get more control versus less, just for clarification.
I don't think it's that way. And maybe Jeff, you can clarify. I think that if it becomes this zone of need of improvement, then there's none of those, the regulation, not saying no regulations, but it's the stuff that we've already have in place for like, buffers and this and height and this, it's a little bit, it's a loose end. Am I right?
Well,
Because
it becomes much more of a negotiation.
It's up to us.
oh, and well, I don't. That's what I meant by releasing our control.
Well, it's up to us. If we want to release none of it, again, the concern I actually have is if you don't ask for variances, if you don't need variances, you never have to go to the planning board. You never have to come to council. You never have to come to anything. You get to be gun shop or.
Let Wendy weigh in here for a second.
If you don't mind, I'm sorry, but when you go to when you have a new development that you're constructing, you will have to go at least for site plan approval to the planning board. Think the liquor store that was approved. Many, their needs did not rise to the level of needing to the zoning board, and their ability to function as a retail liquor store or even like the gun store, all they needed was to confirm that they were in a retail zone. So when you have an area in need of redevelopment, you do have the opportunity to negotiate, as Jeff had said, with the zoning. However, it still is going to require this council to adopt the zoning for the redevelopment plan. So you will certainly have input as to any buffers, you will have input as to height, you will have input as to even the color if you want to. I mean, you actually, because of the negotiation process of the redevelopment plan, you get a heightened ability where you would either have very limited at the planning board level and none at the council, or none at all because it would be as of right. So you do actually get other opportunity. The big thing with an area in need of redevelopment is the ability for the long-term tax exemption program. There is no opportunity if someone comes in with a variance before the zoning board to be able to negotiate those public improvements and private costs, such as the culvert that was being referenced. So those are additional options that become available only when you're dealing with an area in need of redevelopment and negotiating a redevelopment agreement and a plan. So there are benefits as well as what, you know, you guys fear as far as we have zoning, why are we changing it? Well, these are some of the benefits as to why, and they often are very site specific.
But
Good news for, the Lauren.
yeah, the only thing about what you said, that, you know, when you have a negotiation, we have our, you know, what we have now as a baseline. And there's always an interest in, or, you know, going outside of that baseline. So we're going to have to negotiate from our current baseline, you know, somewhere between higher, you know, that more radical items that were, you know, or whatever people want to do, that's more, it would be more radical. So you're actually loosening, use Councilman O'Connor's term, you're loosening the limits, so to speak.
It's completely up.
It's up to us, but that's not how a negotiation works. I mean, a negotiation, you never go, like, if it says 2 stories, you never say, well, we're only gonna do 1 story. Because you've already set the baseline at the 2 stories, and now somebody's saying they want 5 stories, and then you have to go to between 2 and 5. That's a negotiation. So you never have the ability in a negotiation to get more conservative than what you're.
You're never gonna get more conservative than the original zone, right?
So, whereas by the nature of, you know, somebody having to, you know, exist under the current zoning is, you know, it's already set.
Why don't we call the question? Call the question.
Hey, Councilwoman Day.
So I'm going to turn this back to Mr. Capizzi, who's waiting very patiently while we all argue up here. The reality is, you know, a lot of this should be more appropriately in the hands of the planning board. If we go through this and you succeed in this area of redevelopment, it comes back to us who are not planning board experts without a planning board attorney. I think you know that very well. And this council, just so you understand, is very hesitant to build tall, wide, large structures in our central downtown for flooding, shadows, stormwater, all of the reasons I think that you recognize. If we say this is limited, you want a pilot, we'll limit you to three floors. You know, is this a no? Is this a, it must be a 6-floor project in this area, even if there's all these environmental concerns and floodwater concerns? I mean, what are you asking for? Is this not something that you, let me see how I'm trying to get to it. Is this not something that you think you can get to the planning board?
At this stage, there are not at the point of saying that X height and Y units is what we need. This is a conceptual development that we've prepared just to illustrate a potential form for redeveloping property. I just want to make everyone clear. So you commission the planning board, they undertake a study, they make a recommendation one way or the other. Assume they make a recommendation to declare an area in need. You then commission them to prepare a redevelopment plan. They enter into discussions with the developer as to the proposed scheme of development that he wishes to accomplish here. And the council, the planning board, excuse me, says yes or no to certain attributes of that project. Ultimately, the goal is to reach a consensus with the planning board as to a form of development. The planning board then sends that redevelopment plan to the mayor and council for consideration. So I understand the council's hesitancy, but essentially the statute divests some of the decision-making relative to these redevelopment concerns to the planning board because they are best suited to handle them.
That the council can still overrule some of the.
Oh,
That's
understood.
right. I mean, then you're at the whim of us. I'm just saying, you're really at our vote, which,
The reason
yeah,
why.
make sure you want to be there.
We wanted to give the council some food for thought as to what we were thinking about there as far as the development scheme. The building is certainly taller than other buildings in the neighborhood, and it's also uniquely impacted in a way that other properties are not, namely by the fact that the culvert is exposed on a portion of the property. And as a result of the culvert being exposed, there is flooding that naturally occurs onto the piece, which is why this form of development with no living quarters on the first or second floor is ideal. We don't have any people residing in an area anywhere proximate to the flood hazard area. That's a benefit. The only thing that may potentially be impacted are vehicles, but again, the structure itself has to be outside of the floodway, which is a fair distance away from the stream. So we're asking for these forms of relief to try to essentially, what's anticipated under the zoning ordinance that cannot be accomplished because of the environmental constraints, we're seeking to adjust that to make up for the lost area from the environmental constraints, which is why we're going vertical. It's not necessarily, it may be, some may characterize it as a tall building, but it's not a wide building because we had to make it narrow to stay out of the floodway.
I mean,
We had to make it tall in order to provide the required parking, not only that what's required, but what we think would be appropriate for the scale of unit that we're trying to create.
so if you go through this process, let's say we say yes now, we send it to the planning board,
Saying yes now,
not
this
today,
is-
next week,
Yeah.
when we can take action. Hypothetically, you go through the process, and at the end of the study, they say you don't fall under the statute. What you're representing to us is that you will not pursue this project through the planning board?
I don't know what will happen. Ultimately, from the conversations I've had, going is that some form of enhancement of the development potential of the site and a pilot agreement are necessary in order to get this project on.
And if you get a redevelopment area and we don't give a pilot,
It all comes down to numbers. It really, it depends on what the development scheme looks like at that point in time and what the tax obligation may be and what the purchase price is of the real estate and a multitude of factors. So I'm not saying, not avoiding answering the questioning on purpose, just that it's really not for me to say at this point in time because there are so many other things that dovetail into that analysis in order for me to answer.
thank you.
All right, council done with questions, and then this will be decided next week.
I want to say one more thing.
Go ahead.
You know, I do think it is very hard, as BFJ just showed us, to attract people here to our small downtown. It's been a very nice, beautifully sleepy, quaint, characterized downtown for a long time. We've heard through the BFJ presentation, residents are looking for an update. Whether this is the update or not, we do have that study in mind now as we move forward. So I do think it's always helpful to have more information. I do respect our planning board and our subcommittee here, site plan committee, for their efforts. And I do think they're the better person to look at this versus maybe the six of us on the onset. So I will call the question with that. I'd like to know if that next week, we can't have you can't see what the,
Officially vote tonight.
okay.
The vote will be on next
Tuesday
Tuesday.
night, we're having a public, this is just a work session tonight. Next Tuesday night will be the vote.
Can we poll and find out where people's heads are at?
What you can do, ask if somebody wants it to be on the agenda.
Does anyone want this on the agenda next week?
Yes.
Okay, it'll be on the agenda next week.
Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Do you want these back? Okay.
No, hold on, sir, next week. Yeah. Okay,
You're good. Oh, my.
the next on the agenda is the performance performance-based stipend, the Tenafly, the TBAC. Who's going to make this presentation?
JP.
JP, come on up. Come on up to the microphone and identify yourself, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for your time and support. For those who don't know, my name is JP Pedoto, TVAC's captain. With me tonight is Justin Evron, TVAC's assistant captain, and David Novik, TVAC's president. Tonight, we are meeting with you to finalize TVAC's 2021 performance stipend by creating a resolution of the Mayor and Council as outlined in our ordinance. In March, 137,000 was approved for TVAC's 2021 stipend. After counting each member's points based on the point system outlined in our ordinance, 26 of our members qualified for stipend, 24 of which qualified for full stipend, and 2 of which qualified for half. We have brought the spreadsheet outlining each member's stipend points as well as the point system for you to review if needed. With the help of the finance department, we have drafted a resolution that we've also brought with us today and provided to the borough clerk. In order to stay within budget and consistent with previous year's stipends, we are asking the mayor and council to approve $1,400 for eligible members' clothing allowance and $400,000 for eligible members' incentive program if they reached full stipend. 4,000.
4,000.
Yep. This would total to 136,400, which would remain under budget. We believe that our members have gone above and beyond the call of duty this year and throughout 2021, as we've responded to 700 calls so far in Tenafly and surrounding towns. In addition to TVAC's traditional calls of medical emergencies, trauma, psychiatric emergencies, and drug overdoses, TVAC continued to respond and provide medical assistance and transportation to those infected and suffering from COVID-19. Additionally, throughout 2021, as you all know, there's been a significant increase in motor vehicle accidents and pedestrian struck, numerous of which have unfortunately been fatal. Regardless of the nature or outcome, TVAC and its members have and will continue to provide the most efficient and effective treatment and transportation at all calls and events. Since March 2020, TVAC has stayed strong throughout COVID-19 pandemic. While other volunteer and paid agencies have closed or become understaffed, TVAC has remained a vital part of the Tenafly community. And as the COVID-19 pandemic continues with each new variant, TVAC's members will continue to sacrifice their time and lives for the residents of Tenafly. Fortunately, COVID-19 vaccinations have allowed our members and our community to be better protected. And this has allowed us to, again, participate in various town events, as you know, as well as addition to other towns events as well, such as the 1 Mile March and Concert in Teaneck, Holiday Lights Parade in Bergenfield, and also, as you know, staffing the vaccine clinic that we were able to do with Leonia. We've also hosted our own events as well, such as blood drives and Halloween events. We've also been on standby for various weather emergencies, such as Hurricane Ida, fires, and things like that. The J.C. Rubin Run, a bunch of rallies in Tenafly, and also graduations. Although our volunteers have undergone extensive education and training to become EMTs, nothing prepared our members or the world, frankly, for COVID-19 or other difficulties that we have faced this year. However, our members continue to learn and partake in various trainings to stay up to date on the newest information and procedures in order to best serve the residents of Tenafly. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, JP. Who's got questions? Adam, I think your hand was up first.
No, I'm a huge supporter, absolutely. Correctly, it's about $5,000.
So our ordinance basically outlines that each member gets 1,500 of stipend or an amount approved by council. So when we met to discuss the budget, we only approved a total amount. We didn't actually specify amount per member. So tonight is basically just formally saying that on record so that we can make the resolution and then give. Yes, it's within budget. Yeah.
I would actually go one step further, and I don't know if Susan can help us.
Yeah.
Again, at the meeting, they spoke about all the things, the healthcare workers. If there's additional, probably support that as well from absolutely support.
Lauren, please.
JP, first of all, I want to thank you, Justin, your crew, everybody who has done TVAC this year. I want to particularly highlight the work done over at Leonia at the Joint Tenafly-Leonia Vaccine Center. Without your presence there for our TVAC, we could not have opened that center. Leonia did not have a crew, and That was incredibly vital for all of the surrounding communities to get vaccinated. And so thank you. That is just above and beyond the call.
Of course.
I'd like to ask Susan, sorry, Susan, to come to the mic so we can get understanding of what's in the ordinance, how much would be left over, how much you're looking to spend. I just really need a sense of the finances, so I'm going to turn it to our finance person, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, I have all those.
It's in budget, but what's left?
I also have all that information too, Susan. I have that.
Okay.
Yeah, Susan.
More questions from council? Come on up, Susan, but more questions while you're walking. All right, so this is, Susan, really what's going on? This is basically, this is a, well, hold on a second, hold on. This is a budget hearing issue?
Right.
Right, okay, go ahead.
Moralize stipend. $2 based on a point Bible spreadsheet of the members that qualified within accordance with the ordinance. I believe there's 24 members that read from the regular.
So this is for 2021 or 2022?
2021.
2022, so how do we?
21.
I meant 2021, so looking forward to the new year, in December
right,
of
James.
this year. So I'm confused about something. We can't authorize an ordinance tonight, so what's the ask?
No, there's no ordinance.
It's a
The
resolution.
ordinance has already
Here.
been adopted. We're just working within
Okay.
accordance of the ordinance.
All right, first Dan, then Lauren.
Right, she mentioned the minutes, how the amount wasn't in it, so a few years back, I think JP was captain then too. We raised the amount, just never memorialized it, so it
Okay.
got lost in the weeds. And then it's not in the minutes because instead of doing it by amount, they got more members. They budgeted for 20 last year. This year they said, we're gonna have 25, I think. So we kept raising the budget for that amount of members, not the stipend.
Lauren?
So out of the money that we budgeted for 2021, if we pay the 1,050 per member plus the 2 prorated, how much is left in the ordinance is my question.
The budget, 600 out of the budgeted amount for stipend. Yeah. I did my homework.
$600?
$600, but that's just in the line items dedicated for stipend. We also have other money in other line items.
Okay, I was gonna try to divide that and conquer, but $600.
You have a question?
All right, first of all, just, the question is on the spreadsheet. The people who got 100 and higher, is that how?
Yeah, so basically our point system is out of 100 points, and it basically outlines 6 categories that members can receive stipend from, basically, or points towards stipend. So anyone that gets 100 or over would receive full stipend. And kind of like another conversation for another day is we want to update this ordinance so it accurately reflects what we're doing, because as you can see, people were getting way above 100. Yeah.
Is there a, or is that just actually-
Exactly. So that's why we're looking to, in the next year, to update the ordinance. That way it would accurately reflect and there wouldn't be so much disparity.
Lauren, go ahead, please.
So I would like to amend the budget so that the top 5 point totals divide the $600. And I have to tell you, these are people who went above and beyond in the TVAC. I'd like to recognize them by name.
This isn't a budget hearing.
I know, but can we prepare the resolution ordinance so that it does that?
Right.
Line items that were allocated.
So I'm saying there's $600 left in the line item. Well, do I have to do it evenly? Because there's some that have gone 700 hours here, some, and I'd like to recognize the top 5.
So we
Yeah,
can't
so what happens if you're number 6?
arbitrarily just go off the point system, because that's the system that.
I'm going on the point system. I'm saying I'm looking at the points.
What do you do if you're number 6? It's to Susan's point.
Doesn't allow.
I agree with you that there are some members that go above and beyond the average member, but that's what updating the ordinance would basically better reflect that. So that way it would be a higher threshold to reach it or something that more accurately portrays what we're doing. In the past, we've given like officers a bonus, but we've never done like top 5 or anything like that.
That's
Okay.
a 2022 budget.
Well, then let's work with
That's
Wendy
fine.
and let's think about how we can amend our ordinance.
Yes.
Okay, so I tried to redistribute the 600. It's a
Right,
no.
Susan, is there anything else to know, or we're good with this one? We'll vote on it next week.
Yeah, it's
What?
from 2006.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's,
All right. Susan,
JP
thank
and
you.
members, thank you so much.
JP,
Thank you for your
It'll be
time.
Voted on next Tuesday night. Thank you. Okay, last item to be considered is the parking discussion draft ordinance, which has to do directly with the residents of Block 1001. Just to give the council an update, Wendy's put together her initial draft that she's still working on. We've got to seek input from the police chief regarding any effects, any potential decisions you have on traffic. We've got to consult with the Board of Ed, so it's under works right now. And we'll have more information, probably not Tuesday night.
We can't introduce till January
Right,
anyway,
so-
so you'll see it in January.
Yes, Laura.
Well, one of the things that I discussed with the mayor was the option of possibly putting some more green and greenery onto the street, whether we can add some landscaping or trees in our tree fund or improve sidewalks here. I do think that these residents could use a little bit of
Yeah.
a less industrial feel. Obviously, this is one of their concerns, so something to look into.
Agreed, great. Any other questions on that? Okay.
I was just going to say, I think there's a couple of the residents on the call, or at least one, I think. And during public comment, I'm sure she'll.
Yeah, will be welcome to listen to what they have to say. Okay. Jimmy, administrators report, please.
Yeah, happy to take any. Yes, happy to take any questions. I do want to add and elaborate on with the CSX railroad crossings within the borough. I did have a conversation with the CSX state relations manager on Monday, yesterday. His name is Rodney. It was one of the first CSX employees who actually contacted me via telephone. So it was good. We had a good conversation. No update other than that this is going to be continued to be pushed along. So we are pursuing every avenue we can. I've listed almost every individual that was contacted within CSX and indirectly involved. So I'll be able to provide a report once they forward it to their engineering department and can provide an update to the borough.
Any questions? Jimmy? No? Thank you, Jimmy.
No problem.
We're going to move on to our correspondence. We've got.
Sorry, I don't know if Susan wants to give an update on the note sale. Or
In terms of what?
I think it's a pretty big.
Susan, come on up. Councilman wants to hear the note sale story.
It's a big number. I agree with the public should hear it.
We should spend the entire meeting just talking about how awesome.
And we have her in person
Okay,
tonight.
all
We
right.
have her in person.
Stay close, Susan, go ahead, tell us about the note sale.
November 3rd. We're gonna have to put snow sale to bond. Proceeds of the funds debt authorized capital tropical storm Ida that heard an ordinance that was adopted. So the good news is net interest cost of the bids range from 0.31% to 0.4818%. Spencer Savings Bank submitting the lowest bid, and the net interest payable is $10,302.30. So just so you know, I asked bond counsel, how do we do compared to other municipalities? They said other municipalities wish they were 10.
Unbelievable.
Good job, Susan. Thank you.
I don't think everyone understands. You mean 3%, right? 30 basis points.
Right.
That is
It's amazing.
unbelievable what that means. That means you're borrowing money at 0.3%. It's an amazing job. Really well done.
Congratulations.
Thank you for that quick work, that excellent work.
Yes.
I also wanted to hear from Alicia on her, because she went through the trouble of writing it, and I want to hear
Alicia, step up to the mic, please.
about recruitment and employee engagement.
Are you guys warm over there? Can we move
What?
over here now?
Oh, fine.
Oh.
How are you tonight?
Good evening.
Good evening, Alicia. Hi.
Okay, go ahead. I think, Vinu, you want to hear about the vaccine update?
No, well, you can talk about all that.
Can I ask, how does it work? So if they test, how fast do they get the results? And they have to show the test was done and taken within. Oh, wow. That's, okay. Thank you for setting that up. Excellent.
Logan County Job Center, we also partner with like a one-stop shop center for group graduates. And the individuals that are looking to practice. This is service that they offer free of charge, no point for borrowers. There's also no limit on how many residents totally like we've been beginning this social September with the month. There's like $2,000. So this is a free service. They also vet the resumes before sending them over to me, so the partner that I'm working with, she'll get the resume, she'll get the, if they're gonna, if they're good, she'll send them over to me to get them, or they're not going to be more than the process. Yeah. From that, partnership, we did hire one, so we started with that one service, and then we sold this to the partner, so it's already really done.
It's great, great.
We do have another new person for the new department as well.
That's great news.
Tomorrow, December the 8th, I'm really excited about the first HR roundtable. I'll be posting that with because with anything new, there's consequences. So one person has a question, another person has a question. So to get in front of it, just to address questions about something new, we'll be posting whatever information comes out. So that was the only one.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone have questions? Manu, it looks like has a
Yeah,
question.
just, I mean, I don't know, you probably saw that there was a letter sent by somebody on, oh, okay, well, maybe, OSHA is a different thing, but the letter about the member,
The employee handbook.
the employee
We
handbook
just
and
got that.
So, right, she's got, yeah, that just came today. Jimmy and Alicia have to work through whatever the details are about that internally.
Okay.
With Ruby, is that a?
No, for Jimmy and Alicia need to deal with it because it came anonymously, and so we're not even clear what the issues are yet. So
Okay.
Right.
they're gonna identify that.
Yeah, and just, sorry, just to add on, tomorrow's discussion will also aid in that and to be able to provide clarification.
Okay, so that'll all come together with that.
Correct.
Okay.
There were questions about the handbook that came in this afternoon. That's what the topic is. That's all.
So I was just wondering if that was going to be used as kind of basis for this conversation.
Sure.
He wants you to know it's
Yes,
time to go to
Laura.
bed. This is
I
the
want
worst
to
council
say
meeting
thank
ever.
you for the work on the employee handbook. It's one of the things that was so important to me for the past few years as we've developed your position as the HR director. I think it's so vital for our employees. Thank you so much for getting that done and accomplished. That's a huge thing in my book. So thank you.
Thanks for being here tonight. Okay. Okay. Next is correspondence from residents on Grove and Chestnut and Tenafly Road. We started talking about this a little bit today. We're working, again, actually, we started talking about last meeting. We're working on the parking ordinance to benefit the residents directly. Our attorney, Wendy, is putting together essentially a response to some of the questions and comments here, some of which date back quite a number of years. So you have anything to say on that, or we'll wait for your response?
Some comments about a 2014 ordinance, so I was
Right.
just looking into that prior to working with Jimmy to make sure residents receive a response to the correspondence.
And I've had a conversation, I may have reported on this last meeting with one of the residents directly, where we talked a little bit about the potential parking ordinance. And so we'll continue to communicate with them as soon as we have more substantive results. Okay. All right. Next, we're going to go to public comment. Audience members wishing to speak will have 3 minutes to address the governing body on any items on the committee of the whole agenda. Large groups are asked to have a spokesperson represent them. Okay, so Omar, let's start with the people that are in the virtual audience. Is there anyone in there who would like to speak that you see?
I see no hands, Mayor, but if anyone wants to make a comment, just state your name and address.
Is everyone unmuted?
Yes.
Everyone is unmuted right now, so if anyone would like to say something, just speak up, please.
Hi, this is Rachel DeSoma from 33 Chestnut
Hi,
Street.
Rachel, how you doing? We can hear you.
I'm
Just give
well.
us your name and address, please.
Sure. Rachel DeSoma, 33 Chestnut Street. So I just wanted
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to share and follow up to the correspondence. Certainly this evening, I've appreciated the discussion of the due process and our interest in maintaining oversight with our governing body. So that is, it's nice to hear. And with the topics that were discussed, I just wanted to express that I appreciate that. We have been in touch over the years and also appreciate an opportunity to discuss further and look forward to doing more of that. I'm also interested to know what once the information is available, what the plans will be for the proposals for the parking. I know that that's not ready yet, but it is something that we would be interested to hear and possibly have some input for or be available to answer questions. I'd mentioned once before that, you know, in addition to meeting the needs of the residents on the block, because of waivers and variances in the past that are detailed in the recent correspondence that we submitted, you know, a lot of these things have not been accommodating to the businesses that have been permitted to come into the neighborhood. And so while those things may help with some of our personal driveways and not having issues getting in and out of our homes, you know, it's going to additionally tax those businesses. And one thing I asked you know, the council to consider in these plans and discussions is, you know, how, whether it's by a parking pass or, you know, designated areas, how that would be implemented and enforced. You know, some of these things that were detailed in our letter describe some of the waivers and our concern for parking, whether it was a misrepresentation of a meeting, I'm sorry, of a wig retailer, you know, suggesting that that already maintained a sufficient amount of parking while it's actually a single employee that was there some days without any customer traffic. Those types of things that seem to come through our process and be approved leave us in a situation we're at now where some of our fixes, we actually have to consider that as well. I know that in the most recent approvals that were received for 20 Chestnut Street, that there you know, was a declaration that there would not be a need for on-street parking. There was sufficient parking. I had not attended that meeting. I had actually not received the public notice for that meeting. I think it was May 27th of 2020. But after the fact, having looked into it, you know, was able to see in the notice that it discussed the issue of parking and then not other issues that were discussed during the subsequent meetings about the business expanding. So, you know, there are 2 businesses that are moving in there now. And, you know, I want to share, and not that I think this will improve, but that we sometimes feel that we're in the dark, being surprised by things being submitted and being approved, but, you know, not necessarily plans that have an opportunity for public interaction. You know, today, I actually still don't know the name of any of the businesses that are moving in across the street. So, you know, with some of the past issues we had.
You're fading away a little there. Could you go back to your microphone the way you were speaking when you started? Yeah.
How is this? And I'm going to wrap up.
Better.
Much better, much better.
So, you know, many people in the town had concerns by the surprise of the gun store that had moved in, and we are similarly concerned not for the danger in that sense for something moving in across the street at 20 Chestnut, but just still feeling like we're in the dark. You know, and just wanting to be sure that we have a voice and an opportunity to become aware, whether it's something we can access or something that's shared with us. So, you know, it's in summary, really, we're just asking to take these things into consideration for the fixes and things that will help the residents and meet the needs of the businesses, but also consider the precedent we set when we approve things without due process. And then we're working to catch up reactively rather than proactively planning with everyone's voices in consideration. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. So I have 2 questions for you, or 1 question. So when we received this letter, it was signed, you know, with the addresses of yourself and many of your neighbors, and you and I have had a telephone conversation. So are you kind of casually the person that we can communicate with this group, or?
You know, I hadn't self-identified, but I'm more than willing to be that person.
Okay, so that's very important to know. We have your contact information so that we can have a dialogue. The second thing is you asked the question about the parking and will the residents have input? So absolutely yes.
Great.
We're going to look for the feedback from the residents prior to us approving or the council approving or deciding anything. Part of this process is, if you heard the borough attorney, kind of draws up the parameters of what may or may not work. We discuss it with the police chief to see if it's realistic or not realistic, and if it's workable. We have to look at the traffic with the Board of Education and the school drop off, right? And then, of course, I will communicate with you so that we can talk about the details of it as we go through that entire process. Because the last thing we want to do, and the last thing the council wants to do is go through an entire process and we make it worse than it was when we started, or something that doesn't work for the residents. So we're going to include you and your team on your neighbors on that process.
That's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Okay. Omar, anyone else out there who would like to speak?
No, the hands, Mayor.
Anyone else who would like to speak up? No? Okay. Anyone in the audience here who would like to speak? No, Christine? Okay. Okay. All right. So we're going to close public comment as no one else is coming forward. And does anyone have any questions about the resolutions for next Tuesday? Yes, Councilman Grossman.
Yeah, I was trying to find them online. I couldn't. There are two rescind resolutions, R21-168 and rescind R21-250. I just didn't know what they were about. I looked
So those
online, they
yours?
were.
Why don't you come up
Okay.
here and could you please explain that?
Thank you.
See, I read them. That's how I remembered they were Susan's rescinding them.
That was Councilman.
One of them was a duplicate resolution for tax bill. And the other one was, the tax bill attorney wanted the refund rather than the resident. We were giving it to the resident. Tax bill attorney said he wants it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. No more questions about the resolutions. Any questions about the minutes? Okay. All right. Any questions about the public hearing for next week? No? Okay, for the good of the order, Councilman Park, you have a crane operator proposed ordinance here.
Yes,
Tell us what's going on.
This is a few years old. Obviously, the pandemic threw things into a loop. This is just a ordinance that if a crane were to operate in Tenafly, it has to have all the licensing and general requirements documented and supplied to the borough. So I will be proposing this with Wendy in 2022.
Okay, so did Wendy write this or
This is a cookie cutter one.
Better in my office, we have pooped it a bit. I didn't want to move forward to do that until the council variance doing so. But that is the basics of what the licensing requirements would be for crane operators, those types of things. Those are industry standards.
So how does someone use a crane now? If they have to put an air conditioning unit on a roof?
If they do, now we have.
You actually don't have anything regulated. So there might be regulated obviously by the state, but there's nothing that's regulated by the borough to maintain control over what's in town. This is really looking more as to building construction than putting an HVAC on top of the second floor.
Okay. All right, so what would be the next step with this for the council to consider it?
So if the council is amenable, then we'll prepare it for January.
Okay, I'm going to recommend that we do this for January. Not hearing any objections, let's do it for January. Awesome. Thank you. Pardon me? Hold on a second. Thank you, Councilman Park, for bringing it up.
There's a member of the public who couldn't speak, who didn't seem to get unmuted.
Oh, sure. And then they're just late to the party?
Yes.
So are they online now? I'm gonna interrupt for a second to hear them.
Jolie.
Who?
Jolie.
Jolie, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Can
just
anyone
speak
hear me?
clearly right into your microphone. And just give us your
Okay,
name
thank
and your
you.
address, please, Jolie.
Sure, it's Jolie Lau at 65 Hillside Avenue. I was part of the mom family contingent that spoke about a month ago about the gun store, and I was just curious if there was any update on the gun store's plans to move. Is there anyone on the council on point to liaise with them? Like, what's the latest, if there's anything to share?
Okay, so the latest news is that the owners of the gun store in a conversation with a real estate broker to scout out potential locations and to ascertain the specific needs of the gun store in terms of square footage and security and things of that nature. So that is the next step that has happened subsequent to the council passing the ordinance limiting the locations of the gun stores in town. So those are the two things that have happened so far that are underway.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other members of the public? That was it. Okay. We're getting back to, for the good of the order. Okay. So Dan, I have one thing that Jimmy and I and Susan spoke about today. The Senior Citizen Center is in need of new broadband cable lines. I know that we've talked about this maybe 6 months ago or so. The cost is about $15,000 for it to be done. The internet connections at the senior center have been down for 2 days now because it's not working well. The cost of that is $15,000, and that usage of money is something that's allowed under the American Rescue Plan for the money that we do have. So Susan and Jimmy are doing a little more homework on that. We're probably going to present that to the council and see if we can't get that approved to go ahead and put that broadband into the senior center. And it'll be a good use of the money. Were we doing that in January? We're going to propose it to the council or the next meeting?
If it's ready in time, we would, at the next meeting, but as soon as we're able to.
Okay. Okay. So any questions about that? Okay, great. We're going to go into closed session. Can I get
So excited.
a motion to go into close, please?
So moved.
A second? All in favor? Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
I would like the resolution read by our borough attorney.
Resolution R21-422 at a work session of the mayor and council of the borough of Tenafly, County of Bergen, state of New Jersey, held on December 7th, 2021. Be it resolved in compliance with NJSA 10:4-12, the mayor and council of the borough of Tenafly are going into closed executive session to discuss the following matters: collective bargaining, the OPEIU contract, and under attorney-client privilege, lease on borough-owned property, potential contract for electric vehicles, and potential litigation. Any pending or anticipated litigation or contract negotiation which the public body is or may become a party. Sorry, that was supposed to be there. Any matters falling within the attorney-client privilege to the extent the confidentiality is required in order for the attorney to exercise her ethical duties as a lawyer. Minutes will be taken of the meeting and released to the public at the time that the matter is resolved.
Okay. We already voted, so we're ready to go inside. Okay, see everyone inside.
Okay.
Moved around.
Are we?
Okay, we're okay. I'm ready.
Can I get a motion, please, to close the open meeting? The work session.
Second.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good night.